Hello, and welcome to Season 3 of the Working While Homeschooling podcast, the podcast for workingwhilehomeschooling.com, where our mission is to help homeschooling parents make money, maybe even have a career, while continuing to homeschool and without losing their sanity. My name is Julie, and I am your host and resident career coach today. I want to thank you all for joining us and listening in. I hope you're doing well. If you're an entrepreneur or business owner, this announcement is for you. Do you have questions about how to get more clients or wonder how you can do more with less? Do you have big, crazy dreams that you're not quite sure how to tackle? Or perhaps you're wondering how you could make a real income doing any of it? If you've said yes to any of the above, you should consider signing up for one of my business entrepreneur coaching sessions. Now, being your own boss is great, but working on your own doesn't mean you have to go it alone. Coaching is going to provide you the accountability and support you need so that you can reap the rewards of being a solo entrepreneur with less doubt, stress, and struggle. So give yourself an edge over the competition. You can check out my one-on-one coaching services at my site or below. It really is time for you to be able to write your own success story. So let me help you. Again, check out the link on my site or below. Today's episode comes from my Setting Goals and Actually Achieving Them course. This is all about setting goals and actually accomplishing your goals. It is an excerpt of that course, and you'll find a link to that in the show notes. And this process that we're going to be going over today is really kind of developed through my years of career coaching, also just my own life of, trying to do those New Year's resolutions every year and practicing what things work for me and what things don't work for me. So why in the world does anybody create goals in the first place? Like, what's the point of this nonsense? Well, first of all, it's going to force you to clarify what you actually want. Okay, imagine going on a trip with absolutely no destination in mind. How are you going to get there, first of all? Do we need a plane? Do we need a boat? Do we need a car? What are you going to pack? I would hate to show up in Alaska with just bikinis or be on the beach and only have fur coats and so on. We don't really do that in life, do we? So instead, we pick out where we want to go, and then we figure out how we're going to get there and what we're going to need along with this. Do we need snacks? What is it going to be? And it's really the same for milestones in your life. We figure out where we want to go, and then we work our way backwards. And also setting goals. It's going to motivate you to actually take action. Writing goals down actually focuses them, and having to review them focus you and keeps you motivated to move forward, but it also propels you forward as well. Just the simple act of writing them down. So you might have heard that because it's well documented fact. The simple act of writing your goals out and posting them somewhere actually makes you a much higher percentage of success than not doing that at all. Setting your goals actually helps provide a filter for other opportunities. A lot of times you're going to have great things come your way, and it's not that they're necessarily bad. It's easy to say no to things that we don't want or things that aren't necessarily good for us. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the things that are coming our way are actually the best for us. Sometimes it's the difference between, choosing between good and great. Really. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you're saying no to things. We're just not saying yes to certain ones. And I kind of think of this as like a filter. Okay. So if everything has to go through the filter of your goals and your mission statement, your life purpose, whatever that might be, certain things are going to get blocked by that because they're not right for you. But the right things will come through that filter, and the right things will just sift through. And that's really kind of what we want to do with those. Setting goals is also going to help you overcome resistance, because remembering what those goals are, again, is going to propel you forward, and it's going to give you the extra oomph to push through that barrier when you hit them. Because I promise you, nothing we do in this life is not going to hit some form of resistance, right? It is also going to enable you to see and celebrate your success. life is hard, and it's particularly difficult when we don't see progress. So imagine if, your goal was to lose weight, but you never saw the scale move. It's going to be hard to stay motivated, and it's going to be hard to stay on topic and keep working at that when you don't feel success. That's one of the hardest things as well. Well, really, sometimes setting goals is about knowing how knowing when you've arrived, know when you have accomplished that, so that you can celebrate. And think about those as kind of like mile markers on the highways, those written goals. So when you get to one and you've accomplished it and you can scratch it off your list, it's just a celebration, if nothing else. And they let you see how far you've come, but also how far you still need to go. Okay. And they provide an opportunity for celebration when you attain them. And frankly, we as humans, we need that in our lives. We're not creatures of drudgery. We're creatures of community and celebration, and we need to celebrate all of our successes along the way. Without goals, frankly, we as humans, we just drift, okay? And life isn't about coasting. Really feeling successful in life is not about coasting or kind of just sliding through. Step number 1 is going to be about setting our goals and figuring out what those are. It's evaluating. Okay, so first of all, I want you to think about the last year. And for your purposes, you might not be using a full year. It is just about January when I'm recording this. So I'm thinking of this from a January to December moment. But, if you're starting this in June, it could be from June 1st to June 1st. That's okay too. I also know that for some of you, you might be doing like the 13-week, 12 or 13-week goal setting for the quarter, that sort of thing. I know that's a very popular concept. For today's webinar, when I talk about this, I'm kind of thinking from a January to December calendar, but really all of these processes work regardless of the time frame. But whatever that frame is for you, I want you to look backwards, and I want you to evaluate, first of all, what actually worked for you this year, okay? For example, and I've got the picture up here on the screen. Early January 2015, I was sitting down, getting ready to record this webinar for 2015, and I realized that I couldn't find my notes from last year, from 2014, from when I had done these goals for myself. And I looking around and realized, oh, they're still in that box that hasn't been unpacked. And what had happened in 2014 is that summer I had moved, and it should have been a very easy move, like, kind of in one house, out one house, in the other, week, 2 weeks max, we're set, we're going, and we're rolling right along. And nothing worked out that way. It was the move from HE double hockey sticks. It was total insanity. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and then brought us wrong brother along. It was just wrong on top of wrong. And to be honest, it had taken till we moved in June. It took until at least December for us to really get settled and for things to kind of play out and for all of that to calm down. So come January, honestly, there were still boxes that hadn't been unpacked, and I was still just kind of getting adjusted and that sort of thing. And really, I had given up. Come July, honestly, I had given up on goals. I'd given up on plans because everything stopped when I was dealing with the move. Now, when I was able to go back and look, and I finally unpacked that box and found this piece of paper that you see right here on your screen, I realized, even though I had been beating myself up because I was like, you know what, I haven't touched these things since June. How can I do a webinar on goals that I haven't touched since June? This is terrible. And I was just beating myself up. And yet, when I went back through them and I started marking things off, you can see here, I marked off far more than I thought I would have. There's a lot more marked off in that list than I had realized. And part of that was because even though I didn't have the piece of paper posted on my wall or my refrigerator or whatever, even though I wasn't doing all these little steps that year that I always make myself do, because I had chosen goals that year that were right in line with my heart's desire and right line with my life purpose and where I was supposed to be, honestly, these goals got done anyway because they were natural progressions. I didn't need a piece of paper to tell me what to do. I was doing them because they were the right step for me naturally, and I was right in line with what that was at the time. It was perfect. Any progress you make on whatever your goals are a success. Every single little bitty baby step forward is still a little bitty baby step forward. Okay? Progress is success. And I don't care if you don't lose all 50 pounds, if you didn't lose all 50 pounds. If you lost 10, I want you to stand up and cheer and celebrate that 10 pounds because you did lose 10 pounds, so you might as well. Again, it's really important. And sometimes your success is like, you know what? I chose the right goals. They just didn't get done. That's still a success. And I want you to celebrate everything you did right, everything that worked for you, and everything that went well, and everything that you actually accomplished as well. And then once you get past the celebration, then it's time to sit down and assess, okay? Evaluate what didn't work. Did you give yourself ultimatums? My personality, honestly, I don't do well with ultimatums. Even when I give them to myself, like I'm going to do this or else, it's like my inner, teenager just rebels instantly. Maybe you picked a bit off far more than you can chew. Maybe you picked a goal that was so intimidating you were scared to touch it, and so you avoided it and procrastinated. Maybe it was the process that you went about trying to accomplish it. Maybe your success was the fact that, well, you weeded out 4 or 5 different ways about going about this and none of them worked. Sometimes, just even kind of experimentation can still be progress because, hey, now you know 4 things that don't work, right? Sometimes you're going to look at this and you're going to look at last year and you're going to kind of evaluate your year and you're going to, you know what? I need less of stuff. Maybe I want less chaos. And one year that was what I chose. It's really popular to think of a word. Well, that year I was like, you know what? I just want less. I want less chaos. I want less insanity. And that was really the best way I could figure out how to describe that. And so at the end of that year, I looked backwards and I was like, you know what? I did get less. I got more chaos over here, but in these areas I did get less because those were the areas that I worked on. So sometimes that's what we think about when we kind of look backwards. Now, sometimes when we look backwards, it's the opposite. It's when we want more of something. You know what? I want more friends. And I've actually just seen that kind of pop up. One of my local Facebook groups was one of Mom's group. And she's like, you know what? I moved here last year. I realized I don't know anyone. I have no friends. Can we please schedule play dates because I need to get out of my house and I want more friends. She made a goal and she was going after it. I love that. Maybe you need to get out more. Okay, maybe you want more of something in your life, whatever that happens to be. Now, when you look back, it's really easy to beat ourselves up. It's really easy to just slam ourselves and really not give ourselves any sort of grace or forgiveness. And so when we're looking at this, one of the things I want to tell you is I need you to just kind of let that go, okay? Yes. We're not trying to dwell on what we did wrong or what things didn't work. I don't want you getting stuck there. This step is just kind of about assessing what didn't work so we know what to try to work on and focus on what does work moving forward, okay? When I look back, a lot of those were just honestly life dumping in your lap. And we're going to have those years. We're going to have those times where life just dumps a bunch of nonsense in your lap and you're stuck dealing with it. And that's okay. If that's happened to you over the past year or whatever, just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that happened. Identify it, acknowledge it, and then we can move forward. Okay? And if you have obstacles that have been thrown in your way, if you have that pile of nonsense that's been thrown in your lap this past year, and we have to overcome that or get through it or whatever it might be, that's okay too. You just need to know what that is so we can work through that process and make that forward progress at the same time. Since I'm thinking of this as kind of a new year, and I love one of the things that really always kind of attracted me to that New Year's resolution concept is the fact that a brand new year is a brand new slate. You have been wiped clean. And I love that. I think it was a quote from Ellen Montgomery from Anna Green Gables. Every day is a brand new day with no mistakes made in it, or something of that nature. And I love that. Every day is a fresh start with no mistakes in it. I love the idea of a brand new clean calendar that hasn't been scratched and scribbled all over. I mean, I'm an office supply kind of a nut anyway. I love going to office supply stores. I love fresh calendars and programs and pencils and crayons and markers and all that kind of stuff. It's fun. It gives you this idea of a fresh start. And that's really what this is. Whether you're working for a full year or from January to December, or if you're looking at a quarter or whatever it might be, this is your fresh start and new beginning starting right now, full of new possibilities. And I just love the freedom. And that's kind of what I wanted to give you guys there.
Now, as we wrap up our episode today, I want to thank you all for listening in. There are a ton of great podcasts out there, but you chose to spend your time here with me, so thank you. In the show notes, you're going to find the links to my site, workingwhilehomeschooling.com, and all of the great ways you can connect with me online, as well as the link to the Setting Goals and Actually Achieving Them course that you heard an excerpt of today. Now, if you enjoyed today's podcast, feel free to become one of our listener supporters by following the link in our show notes. A small monthly donation helps me continue with great content and interviews like you've heard here today on the Working While Homeschooling podcast. Your positive online reviews, subscribing to our podcast, sharing this with all of your friends is greatly appreciated as well. And if you know someone that you think would be a great guest of our podcast, please let me know at julie@workingwhilehomeschooling.com. Thank you for listening in today, and please make sure you're joining us in our Facebook group for a continuing conversation on today's topic and beyond. I look forward to seeing each of you soon at our next podcast for Working While Homeschooling.